Billionaire followed her nanny after hours. What she saw will haunt you forever. The night was thick with secrets, draped in shadows that twisted and turned like whispers on the wind. In the heart of the city, where the rich glittered like stars, one billionaire named Victor Thorne had decided to follow his family's new nanny, a woman named Emily, down darkened streets, swirling with mystery. What he saw would claw through the very fabric of his sanity. A chill settled into his bones as he watched Emily slip through an unmarked door, the kind that dripped with the allure of the forbidden, beckoning with ominous temptation. But it wasn't just the door that sent panic rushing through Victor's veins, it was the eerie glow of flickering lights inside a dance of shadows that promised something sinister, something otherworldly. He felt both the thrill and the dread, a lump forming in his throat as he struggled to make sense of it all. Why was she here at this hour? What dark rendezvous lay ahead? As he crept closer, he noticed the air grew thick, charged with anticipation, and distant laughter echoed like ghosts celebrating the end of the world. Who were these people? What kind of gathering called for such secrecy? Victor's heart raced as he peeked through the window. Inside, silhouettes swayed under the dim light, faces painted in vibrant hues. Strange symbols adorned the walls, as if the room was alive with the spirits of a long-lost age, an unsettling shrine to something unknown. He fought the urge to turn back, but curiosity gnawed at him. The very thought of Emily, innocent and unaware, in the middle of whatever this was, sent his mind spiraling. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. A weighty hush fell over the room, the kind that makes your skin prickle. It was in that silence that Victor caught the sharp intake of breath from someone inside, followed by a faint scream that sent a jolt through him. What was happening? He couldn't decipher the shapes on the floor now. All he knew was that he had to know more. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Bracing himself, Victor pressed his face closer to the glass, eyes wide, breath held. The anticipation in his chest pulsed like a drum. Suddenly, a figure moved to the front, their features obscured by darkness. They raised a hand, and the crowd quieted once more. Everyone tilted their heads in unison, all eyes on this mysterious leader with an aura of power that sent arrows of fear deep into Victor. What power did they possess? Was Emily in danger? The night was far from over, but Victor's heart thrummed against his ribcage, trembling with dread and need. He was about to discover the truth, but would it cost him more than he could afford? What haunting secrets lay behind that door, waiting to ensnare him? Victor's breath came in short gasps, the cold air stinging his lungs as he peered through the cracked window. The mysterious figure at the front stood like a dark monolith, their voice cutting through the stillness with an unsettling smoothness. "Tonight, we embrace the shadows," they exclaimed, their words laced with a force that vibrated in Victor's bones. Unease washed over him like icy water, knotting his stomach. Emily remained in the fringes of the gathering, clearly out of place. Victor's heart sank as he noticed her wide eyes, flickering between fear and confusion. She barely seemed aware of the energy swirling around her, the chanting that rose and fell like a tide. Each one of those participants was cloaked in a shroud of purpose, their movements synchronized like clockwork, yet harbored a sinister undercurrent that made Victor's skin crawl. "Why are you here?" The thought echoed in his mind, a relentless whisper that collided with his protective instincts. Every muscle in his body screamed for action. He had to get her out of there. But a strange force held him frozen, grappling with his internal shake of anger and fear. The leader, shrouded in a dark hood, began to chant in a language Victor didn't recognize. Each syllable dripped with intent, resonating deep within the walls of the hidden room. Flickering candles illuminated the strange symbols, and Victor's eyes widened as the realization hit these weren't just random designs. They represented something ancient, something powerful. Suddenly, one of the figures in the crowd lunged forward, a flash of silver glinting in the dim light. The room gasped collectively, a wave of shock slamming through the gathering like a gust of wind. Victor's heart raced. What was happening? Was someone going to harm Emily? In that heart-stopping moment, he surged toward the door, adrenaline boosting his resolve. He had to reach her before it was too late. But his body faltered, the door loomed heavy, an unseen force pressing against him as if warding him off. With a fierce breath, he gripped the handle, praying it would turn. There was a sudden flash. A blinding light burst through the cracks around the door, illuminating Victor's face. The chanting grew louder, more frantic, engulfing him in a cacophony of sound. The air felt electric, tinged with potential disaster. As if calling to him, the light spread, reaching for his fingertips, testing his resolve. "Stop!" he yelled, voice deepening with urgency. He needed them to hear him, to compel them back from whatever dark cliff they were about to step over. Yet the words hung heavy, suspended in the air. The crowd didn't flinch, still locked in their trance. And then he saw it, a figure emerging behind the leader, a glimpse of fury flashing in the dim light. This new player had an aura that was both terrifying and magnetic, a shift in the energy that made shivers race along Victor's spine. He was drawn in not just to the chaos around him, but also to Emily, wide-eyed and trembling as she stepped closer to the terrifying scene. What was he to do now? What truth had he stumbled upon, and could he really risk everything to pull her back from the brink? In that moment, the intensity of the air shifted, a proclamation echoing through the room. "It's time to awaken the Guardians." The ground beneath him seemed to tremble, and Victor's heart thudded hard against his chest. Whatever lay ahead was more than he had bargained for. Would he manage to save her? The door stood ajar, the shadows within beckoning. The line between danger and discovery blurred, and Victor was caught in the crossfire. What awaited him on the other side of that threshold? Would he uncover the secrets hidden within, or would they consume him entirely? The chanting rose to a fever pitch, swirling around Victor like a storm. The air vibrated with an energy he couldn't comprehend. The light from the candles now flickered erratically, casting bizarre shadows that danced across the walls. Victor felt it tugging at his sanity, teasing him with a sense of urgency. And there was Emily, still transfixed, her wide eyes reflecting the chaos, the flickering shadows making her look almost spectral. His thoughts raced. He had to break through to her. But how? He had to push past that unseen barrier holding him back. "Emily!" he shouted again, his voice cracking under the weight of raw desperation. "We need to go now." In that moment, the figure in the hood, the leader, turned towards him. Their face, hidden in darkness, bore an unsettling calm. "Do you not wish to join us?" they said. "The shadows hold secrets beyond your imagination. Power lies within them." Victor felt a wave of nausea crash over him. "No. You're wrong. All I see is danger." From the corner of his eye, he saw the silver flash again, a knife held high, glinting in the candlelight. The figure's intention was clear, the sharp blade was meant for a sacrifice. He felt his breathing quicken, and his heart pounded like a war drum. He couldn't let this happen. "Get away from her!" His voice echoed, a sudden outburst amidst the chanting that faltered for just a moment, but it was enough for Victor to seize the opportunity. He surged forward, forcing his way toward the front. The thrumming energy of the room surged with him, as if the shadows themselves were awakening. He didn't have time to think, all that mattered was Emily. But just as he reached out to grab her arm, the leader raised their hands, and silence fell like a lead blanket. For a moment, it felt as if the very air had solidified, suspending time itself. Everyone turned to him, faces blank, eyes glazed as if in a trance. The leader's lips twisted into a mocking smile. "You're too late," they hissed. "The Guardians demand a tribute, and they shall receive it." Victor's stomach sank. It was more than just a ritual. It was a claim, a binding, and he had walked right into it. He had to act fast. The knife wielder advanced on Emily, a crazed look in their eyes. A chill swept through Victor as he noticed the figure's reflection in her eyes, a predatory glint. "No!" Victor roared, pushing through a crowd that suddenly seemed to part like the sea. He reached Emily just in time, gripping her hand tight. "We have to move now." The chanting resumed, louder and more urgent, the crowd thrumming with a violent energy that clawed at the edges of his resolve. As he turned to escape, the ground beneath them pulsated, almost alive, resisting their flight. He stumbled, his feet catching in the otherworldly grip of the shadows, and then, as if in direct reply to the leader's call, a deafening roar echoed around them. The very foundation of the room shook. The shadows were alive, and they were angry. "Embrace the light!" Victor shouted, knowing only instinct drove him now. "We can't let them take you." As he pulled her closer, a surge of electricity spread through the air, something ancient and malevolent stirring to life. Dark shapes spiraled from the walls, twisting and contorting, racing towards them. In that heart-stopping moment, just as the shadows closed in, something unexpectedly snapped inside Victor. A raging determination ignited. "Fight with me, Emily. Please?" he urged, locking eyes with her. The space shuddered. Would they be consumed, or could they break the dark hold pressing around them? A decision loomed, as vast as the abyss before them. What would they choose? Would they plunge into the shadows, or could they summon the strength to shatter the veil binding them to an ancient darkness? The air thickened with tension, the choice hanging perilously in the balance. The next moment could save them or doom them forever. With a roar that shook the very foundation of the ritual chamber, Victor pulled Emily from the grip of the shadows. The moment their hands connected, warmth surged through him, like a flicker of hope igniting within a suffocating darkness. "Run!" he urged, dragging her towards the edge of the circle, but the shadows recoiled, forming a barricade that pulsed with a sinister life of its own. The ground throbbed like a heartbeat, and he felt panic wrap around his throat like a vice. "This way!" A voice, desperate and raw, cut through the chaos. It was a woman from the crowd, her expression filled with terror and urgency. "The only way out is to the left." Without a second thought, Victor yanked Emily to the left, the chanting surrounding them escalating to a deafening crescendo. Each word dripped with a dark, hypnotic rhythm, a call that promised power, but only with a sacrifice. They burst through a line of entranced worshippers, their eyes vacant yet filled with an unsettling devotion. Victor's stomach churned as he sprinted, taking in the scene scattered with flickering candlelight and shadows writhing like dark serpents. Each step further unsettled the ground beneath them, urging him to turn back, to fall into the embrace of the night. Emily stumbled, her gaze flickering over her shoulder. "Victor, we can't leave them." "No," he shouted, feeling a surge of fierce protectiveness. "We can't save them if we're dead." They dashed deeper into the labyrinth of the chamber, its walls closing in, almost alive, as if the very architecture sought to ensnare them. The shadows continued to twist, moving closer, hungry for their disobedience. Suddenly, the chanting shifted, words rising and falling with a darker, more urgent undertone. The lead figure, still cloaked, raised the knife high, the blade gleaming ominously in the flickering light. "Feed the guardians!" they bellowed, their voice reverberating with chilling authority. Victor felt Emily's hand tighten in his, her heart pounding like a war drum against his arm. The ritual had no intention of stopping. They needed to find a way out or risk becoming part of the sacrifice. Looking around, Victor searched for any sign of a way out. Then, his heart sank at the far back. There was an archway illuminated by a ghostly light, almost ethereal. "There!" he pointed, adrenaline coursing through him. As they bolted toward it, the shadows lashed out, sharp and ravenous. Victor felt a searing pain slice through his arm as something cold grabbed him, threatening to pull him back, away from freedom. "Victor!" Emily screamed, her voice cutting through the haze. It propelled him forward, dragging against the chilling grasp of the shadows. He felt her fingers slip from his grasp for a fraction of a moment, and his gut twisted with fear. Couldn't he lose her? Not now. He lunged back, diving to grab her wrist, just as the light from the archway seemed to pulse invitingly. It filled him with a fierce determination. "We have to jump through." "Are you sure?" Emily gasped, uncertainty clouding her face. "Trust me," Victor replied. They launched forward together, the shadows clawing at their backs, the chanting reaching a terrifying peak that echoed in their skulls. Then, in an explosive symphony of light, they dove towards the archway. It swallowed them. The world spun wildly, colors blurring and merging, and then they were somewhere new. Not just outside the ritual chamber, but in a whispering void, and around them, echoes of the past danced like fleeting spirits. Victor's breath caught in his throat. "What is this place?" he murmured, eyes wide with disbelief. Emily grasped his arm tightly. "Are we safe?" But as they exchanged a glance, the sense of security shattered. A deep, resonating laughter echoed around them, and a shadow darker than night pressed closer, encircling them like a beast poised to strike. The air turned cold, and the ground beneath them started to tremble again. What have we unleashed? The question hung in the void as the pressure intensified. What lay ahead, a savior or an eternal nightmare? As the laughter crescendoed, one thing became clear: they hadn't escaped the darkness. They had only awakened something far worse. Victor's heart raced as echoes of laughter wove through the air, a sound both haunting and menacing. It felt alive, swirling around them like a thick fog. He could almost see it, dark tendrils curling and coiling, searching for their weakness. "Victor, what is happening?" Emily's voice trembled, her grip tightening around his arm. He shook his head, trying to think clearly amid the chaos closing in on them. "I don't know, but we need to move." As if responding to his urgency, the shadows quivered, drawing back slightly, revealing a narrow path. It twisted toward what appeared to be shimmering light at the far end, a stark contrast to the darkness that drowned the space around them. "Over there!" Victor pointed. "We have to make it to that light." Treading cautiously, they stepped forward, the ground shifting beneath their feet, a disorienting mix of solid earth and swirling mist. Each ounce of hope clashed with an overwhelming dread that threatened to crush them. Suddenly, the deep laughter faded, replaced by a low growl, deep and echoing. It was as if the void itself disapproved of their escape. Victor felt Emily's breath hitch beside him. "Keep going," he urged, propelling them onward. They raced toward the light, but with each step, an unseen force pulled at them, cold and relentless. Shadows clawed at their backs, relentless as they tried to close the gap. Victor could feel them tugging, testing his resolve, as fear slammed into his chest like a brick. "Don't look back," he shouted, though the urge to do so was nearly irresistible. He could sense something looming behind them, aware and malevolent. His instinct screamed that they were not alone in the void. Their journey had awakened whatever dark force had been lying in wait. Just as they reached the edge of the light, a figure emerged from the swirling darkness, eyes glistening with malice. The person wore a cloak stitched from shadows, moving with an unnatural grace. "You think you can escape so easily?" the figure hissed, voice like gravel scraping against glass. "You've entered my domain." Victor felt a chill pierce his soul. "What do you want from us?" he demanded, fear igniting his anger. The figure smiled, revealing rows of sharp teeth glinting in the ethereal light. "You've already given me what I crave. Your fear fills me, sustains me." Emily backed away, her face pale, eyes wide with terror. "Victor, we need to go." But the figure was fast. It surged forward, shadows stretching out like fingers, trying to weave around them, to ensnare them in an inescapable grip. "No!" Victor cried out, instinctively shoving Emily behind him, resuming the frenzied pace toward the light. They couldn't let it catch them, they couldn't let it feast on their fear. As they sprinted, the threshold of light blurred, flickering like a candle in the wind, the promise of safety drawing closer yet remaining elusive. With every ounce of strength, they leapt for the light, limbs outstretched, hope screaming in their hearts. They burst through, a blinding brilliance engulfing them. For a moment, they felt suspended between worlds, then darkness crashed in like a wave. They were thrust into another realm, different but equally unsettling. A sprawling, decayed landscape sprawled before them, ruins rising from the barren earth, as if nature itself had abandoned it. Hollowed buildings stretched up, their features broken and jagged, shadows still dancing around their foundations. "What is this place?" Victor breathed, panic clawing at his throat. Emily's face was a mix of confusion and horror as she scanned the desolate scene. "I don't know, but I have a feeling we haven't escaped at all." As they stepped forward, the ground trembled ominously again. The laughter returned, echoing through the ruins, and Victor realized with icy dread that they were not alone. Shadows shifted among the ruins, whispers wrapping around them. "Run!" Victor shouted, terror propelling them into the unknown, but questions flooded his mind. Where were they? What pursued them now, and worse, how were they going to escape this terror that awaited in every shadow? Just as panic set in, the ground shuddered violently beneath them, signs of something monstrous rising from the depths. What emerged could change everything or end it. Victor's feet stumbled on the uneven ground as an ominous roar erupted from below, drowning out the echoes of laughter. His heart thundered in his chest, as survival instincts kicked in, dragging Emily along with him. Dark shapes writhed in the corners of his vision, but he didn't dare look back. They had to keep moving. "Stay close!" he barked, fear lacing his voice. The air felt thicker, as if it were alive with malevolence, pulsing around them. Emily nodded, eyes wide, glistening with unvoiced fears. The tremors intensified, rattling the very essence of their hope. Victor felt the ground split beneath them, a fissure that opened with a sinister growl. Just as they lunged to the side, jagged teeth of stone broke through the earth, snapping at the space where they had just stood. "What was that?" Emily gasped, her voice trembling. There was no time to answer. The shadows darted closer, insistent and unpredictable. Victor's pulse quickened as specters of the past whispered his name, invoking a twisted recognition that clawed at his mind. They darted into a crumbling archway of one dilapidated structure, its jagged edges threatening to close in around them. Inside, the air was stale, tinged with despair. Rusted metal and forgotten debris littered the floor, but Victor willed himself to ignore the ruinous remnants of lives once lived. "What do we do now?" Emily whispered, fear threading her tone. "We need to find a way out," he replied, though uncertainty gnawed at him. Ruffling echoes of whispers washed over them, wrapping around like a chilling embrace. It was as if the darkness was alive, pulsing with quantum awareness, calculating their every move. Abruptly, a shadow flitted just beyond the cracked window, causing Victor's heart to leap. He turned, but nothing was there, just the desolate expanse outside, swallowed by twilight. Emily's voice trailed off in dread. He bolted toward the entrance of the structure, pulling Emily after him. They needed to escape, to outrun the ever-encroaching darkness. As they stepped out onto the barren landscape again, the sky churned above them, swirling like a tempest brewing for a violent storm. Shadows wrapped around their ankles, hesitant but alive, prolonging their torment. Suddenly, a figure erupted from the shadows, grotesque yet familiar. Victor squinted, shock freezing him in place. It was the cloaked figure, the enemy they thought they had evaded. This time, its grin was wider, teeth glistening in the gauzy light that struggled to penetrate the perpetual twilight. "Did you really think you could run from your fears?" it taunted, voice sweet like syrup yet dripping with venom. "You're only prolonging the inevitable." Victor felt the weight of its words, an oppressive dread squeezing his insides. Emily shivered beside him, her face pale but defiant. "We're not afraid of you," she shouted, voice quaking. The figure laughed, a sound that echoed in haunting ripples. "Ah, but you are, and that just makes the hunt more delicious." Victor saw it then, the shadows swirling like a storm at its heart, hungry for their fear. He needed to act. "Emily, we can't let it consume us. We have to face it." Though her eyes were wide with fear, he saw the flicker of determination kindling there. "Together?" she asked. "Together," he confirmed, stealing a breath. They would not be victims. Not here. The power of their resolve could forge a weapon. With a shared nod, they faced the figure that loomed over them, confidence rising against the tide of darkness. The wind rustled, screaming reaction, but they planted their feet firm. Suddenly, the shadows shifted again, dark tendrils extending from the figure, trying to tether them. Victor clenched his fists, ready to fight. "We won't give in," he shouted, every ounce of strength churning inside him. As the shadows lunged, he felt an energy building, something dawn-like awakening beneath the surface. But before Victor could unleash it, the ground trembled violently, rippling into existence around them. Light began to fracture, radiating from Emily's side.
"Victor! Look!"
And then a deafening roar echoed, something massive unfurling from the depths of the earth beneath them. What they were faced with was a creature beyond comprehension, a dark nightmare manifesting as if summoned to end it all. Would their resolve be enough in the face of this terror? Or would they collapse into the very darkness they sought to escape? The answer hung on the edge of the abyss as the creature's growl filled the air like thunderclouds ready to rain destruction. Victor's heart raced as the ground beneath them quaked, dislodging pebbles that skittered away. The creature rose higher, its form partially obscured by the swirling darkness. It had eyes like burning coals, piercing through the shadows that cloaked it, and as it drew closer, Victor could see scales glinting in the feeble light, a nightmarish blend of predator and monster, a testament to the dark depths of their collective fears. "No!" Emily screamed, breaking through the paralyzing grip of terror. "We have to move!" But the shadows constricted around them, curling like smoke, blocking their escape routes. Their surroundings felt like a living labyrinth, every crack in the stone and every pulse of the ground taunting them. Faced with their impending doom, Victor sensed the energy he had felt before intensifying. It surged within him like a volcano ready to erupt. "Emily!" he shouted over the roar of the creature. "Don't let it win. Fight back!" With a fierce glint in her eyes, Emily took a step forward, fury igniting in her chest. "You think you can intimidate us?" she yelled, her voice a beacon cutting through despair. "You don't own our fear." Victor felt his own strength swell at her defiance. "Yes!" he shouted, channeling his will into the moment. "Fear is just an illusion." And with that, a brilliant flash erupted from Emily, illuminating the dimness in unearthly brilliance. She unleashed a radiant force, blinding and intense, and the ground quivered in disbelief. The creature recoiled, its infernal eyes narrowing. A terrifying screech echoed as it writhed, disoriented. "Keep it coming!" Victor yelled, adrenaline sharpening his focus. They stood side by side, drawing strength from one another, each pulse of light cascading like waves against the dark tide. The shadows that had once sought to imprison them began to recede, shriveling under the brilliance of their united front. "Together, remember? We can do this!" Emily reaffirmed, her confidence shining through her fear with every surge of energy. Victor could feel their shared resolve forging a barrier against the creature. Their spirits intertwined, forming a tapestry of courage and light that pushed back against the darkness. The creature screeched, its form flickering, revealing the monstrous truth. It was a swirling mass of their past, their insecurities, their doubts made flesh, and they had summoned it into being with their own fears. It was not just a predator, it was the embodiment of everything that had haunted them, every regret, every whisper of worthlessness. "No!" Victor roared, his voice mingling with the surge of their energy. "You have no power here." With one final exclamation, they unleashed their combined strength, a radiant beam of light surging forward and striking the creature in its core. It howled in anguish, the sound piercing and heart-wrenching. The ground shook violently, fissures erupting beneath their feet. "We need to get out now!" Emily cried, panic creeping in. Victor looked around. The darkness was dispersing, but the structure itself began collapsing inward. They had to escape, but how? A single way forward opened as the shadows retreated, forming a jagged path behind the creature, which writhed in agony. "Go!" he urged Emily, pushing her before him as they darted towards the exit, the cacophony behind them intensifying. With every step they took, the darkness seemed to reach for them, desperate, clawing, but they pressed on. The howl of the creature echoed behind them, morphing into a terrifying cacophony that shook Victor's resolve. But just as they neared what felt like a final escape, the ground beneath them shuddered, a massive fissure opening wide. Victor pulled Emily with him, but the very fabric of the world felt as if it was unraveling. "We can't fall. We have to jump." Together, they lunged towards the edge. The instant they leapt, a surge of dark energy erupted from the fissure, reaching toward them like desperate hands of fate grasping in futility. They hit the ground hard, rolling into a chilling stillness, gasping for breath as the last echoes of turmoil faded away. It was over, wasn't it? But as they turned to look at the darkness behind them, a new force loomed, a sinister hum rising from the abyss. What awaited them in the shadows now? Was this truly a victory, or merely the beginning of an even graver threat? The air thickened with foreboding, and the mystery of what lurked ahead began to claw at their senses. The new world around Victor and Emily was eerily quiet, but that stillness felt heavy, like the tension in a tightly stretched bowstring. Adrenaline still pulsed in their veins, their hearts racing as they struggled to process what just happened. They had escaped, but remnants of dread clung to their minds. Shadows seemed to linger at the edge of their vision, whispering tales of horror yet to unfold. "Are we safe?" Emily whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. She was still trembling, an aftershock coursing through her body. "I think so." Victor inhaled deeply, attempting to steady himself. The air was thick, almost electric, but the darkness behind them was fading. Yet their relief felt hollow suddenly. The ground beneath them vibrated with a low, rumbling growl, an echo of the creature's anguished cries. They hadn't truly escaped. The shadows were merely regrouping, and preparing for another assault. Fear clawed at Victor's insides like a wild animal, but he concealed it behind a mask of resolve. "We need to move. This place, it's not going to let us go." Emily nodded fervently, her eyes shimmering with a mixture of determination and fear. They set off, navigating a labyrinth of crumbling rock and sharp edges. Each step felt precarious, the earth shifting under their feet like a restless beast awakening from a long slumber. As they moved deeper, the air grew colder, and the shadows began to swirl around them, inhaling their courage. Flickering phantoms danced just beyond the periphery of their vision, whispering secrets that sent chills up Victor's spine. "Stay close," he urged, gripping Emily's hand tightly. He hoped the connection would protect them. Suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, Victor saw something glimmer in the darkness, a jagged piece of glass protruding from the ground. Its surface shimmered like it was reflecting a world outside this nightmare. He knelt and picked it up, feeling its sharp edge press against his palm. "What is it?" Emily asked, squinting down at the shard. "I don't know. But maybe it can help us," Victor replied, curiosity mingling with unease. The moment he spoke, a horrific roar pierced the air. The shadows coalesced into a physical form, shifting and writhing before them with a hunger that chilled Victor to his core. It was adapting, growing stronger, its twisted features morphing into something more tangible and terrifying. "No. We won't let you win," Victor shouted, raising the shard like a weapon, channeling everything they had fought for into that single moment. But the creature didn't back down. Instead, it lunged at them, jaws snapping wide, filled with rows of teeth that gleamed like freshly polished knives. "Victor, run!" Emily screamed, pulling him back as they stumbled. They fled, hearts pounding in their chests, but the darkness seemed to stretch and grasp, tendrils of shadow hunting them. Victor risked a glance over his shoulder, and what he saw knocked the breath from his lungs. 1,000 faces twisted in anguish roared back at him from the walls, memories of their fears carved in anguish. "Keep going," he urged, guiding Emily toward a flickering light in the distance. It pulsed like a heartbeat, offering a tantalizing hope amidst the shadows. As they surged towards the light, the air around them grew thick with whispers, taunting them, piercing through the beats of hope. "You can't escape your fears. They will consume you." Victor felt the weight of those words. Could they truly escape? The voice echoed through his mind like a sinister mantra. "Almost there," Emily shouted, determination reigniting her spirit. But just as they reached the threshold, something unnatural jerked Victor backward. He stumbled, and he could feel claws gripping his feet, chaining him to the darkness. Panic surged, and he twisted wildly, trying to break free. "Victor!" Emily wailed, her voice breaking through the chaos surrounding them. Desperation surged within him, and with one final effort, he clawed at the shadows gripping him. "We're not going to let this happen." In that moment of raw, fierce defiance, he felt the shard pulsing with energy, urging him. Would it save him, or would it lead the creature straight to them? Could they truly defeat the darkness, or would it consume them whole? The shadows howled at his hesitance, and with a rush, Victor made the fateful decision: he would either free himself or fall into the abyss. The world echoed as he summoned every ounce of power he had left. Victor's heart raced as he channeled the shard's energy, feeling its intensity surge. The dark fingers clawing at him seemed to flinch, as if startled by his ferocity. He could feel Emily's grip tighten around him, an anchor amidst the chaos. With every ounce of strength, he raised the shard higher, letting the hope it contained drown out the voices of despair swirling around them.
Don't let go,
he shouted, his voice shattering through the shadowy whispers, refocusing their shared purpose. In a split second, he felt that familiar rush as the shard began to glow, illuminating the darkness like a small flame against encroaching night.
What are you doing?
Emily breathed, her face painted with fear and awe.
I don't know. Just trust me,
Victor yelled, forcing himself to focus. The shadows recoiled in response, hissing like boiling water, then, as if sensing the shift in power, the creature let out another ear-splitting roar, its form twisting and expanding, morphing into something even more monstrous. The darkness became a writhing mass, eyes opening, teeth bared, and Victor could feel the weight of terror mounting. The air grew thick and oppressive, a heavy curtain suffocating his very resolve. Then it attacked. With one powerful lunge, the creature charged at them, teeth snapping dangerously close. Victor swung the shard in reflex, the light it emitted slicing through the brawn of the beast. It bellowed, a sound that cut deep into Victor's chest, and he was sure the ground beneath them trembled in fear.
Run!
He ordered, not waiting to see if Emily followed, racing toward the pulsating light ahead, his one beacon of potential safety. He sprinted, leaving the shadows to thrash behind him, each step a prayer that the shard would protect them. Soon, he felt the warmth of the light pouring over him, wrapping him in a fleeting sensation of safety. Emily was right behind him, pushing herself beyond her limits. They were almost there, but just as they reached the edge of the light, an ominous shadow fell over them. The creature's form lunged into the beam, its monstrous head peering through the brilliance, eyes burning with rage.
No!
Victor shouted, raising the shard in defense. But the creature was relentless, thrashing and smashing against the light as though trying to tear it apart.
Victor, what do we do?
Emily's voice wavered, fear slipping through her bravado.
I don't know.
We have to keep it back.
It can't have us.
Panic loomed in Victor's breath, the pressure of time swirling as shadows pressed against the shimmering light like a tide determined to drown them. Victor's mind raced. Was the shard really their salvation, or had it led them into a trap? He looked back at the monstrous face, now closer, and for a fleeting moment, it was as if he recognized the agony within its eyes. Tears ran down what might have been its cheek. Memories? Or were they reflecting his own fear, his own failures?
Victor!
Emily cried again, shattering his contemplation. It's getting in. With desperation clawing at his throat, he thrust the shard forward. A brilliant flash erupted, and the creature recoiled as if burned. But even as Victor poured every ounce of his being into that light, he could see it fighting back. Adaptation, survival.
Together?
He shouted over the upheaval.
We have to believe.
The glow intensified, illuminating the depths of night pooling around them. Victor felt the edges of despair creeping in again. They needed more than hope. They needed to face their fears head-on. Holding hands firmly, they whispered their past horrors, their regrets, the doubts that had chased them. The shared vulnerability became a bridge for the shard's power, and suddenly it felt like the pulse of the light matched their beating hearts. Then, just as fingers of darkness lunged to consume them, the ground beneath them shook violently.
Look out!
Emily screamed, but it was too late. An explosion of light erupted from the shard, consuming everything. Visions of shadow and fear twisted around them, blurring the line of reality. Were they breaking through, or were they spiraling deeper into despair? When the light finally faded, they found themselves somewhere else. New shadows loomed over them, the air thick with an unfamiliar tension. Victor's breath caught in his lungs. What have we done? From beyond, a voice echoed with chilling clarity. You think you can escape? The nightmare is just beginning. What lay ahead, and did they dare venture further into whatever world awaited them? Victor's heart pounded like a drum, echoing through the dense silence of their new prison. They had jumped, but where had they landed? The air felt alive, crackling with a foreboding energy, and he could sense the shadows stirring again, watching with malicious intent, waiting for their moment. "Where are we?" Emily whispered, her gaze darting around, searching for a flicker of hope in the darkness. "I don't know," Victor admitted, a knot forming in his stomach. The chill in the air felt almost sentient, wrapping around them like a vice. Just then, that chilling voice echoed again, deeper and more commanding. "You think you've fled?" In this realm, the true nightmare begins. The laughter that followed reverberated through the dilapidated walls, cold as ice. "No!" Victor shouted, swinging the shard defensively. "We won't let you take us again." His hands trembled, the remnants of their struggle still coursing through him. "You carry your fears with you," the voice hissed, shifting like smoke through the air. "You cannot escape what you are." As shadows coalesced into ominous shapes, their forms flickering on the edges of visibility, Victor forced back his dread. "Emily, we have to face whatever this is. We're strong together." "I know," she replied firmly, though her voice quivered. She stood beside him in solidarity, her grip around his hand a beacon of warmth fighting the chill that gnawed at their bones. The spectral figures moved closer, swirling like a storm, their faces twisted into taunting masks of despair, reflections of doubts they had long fought to suppress. The shadows dripped with memories, embarrassment, grief, failure, each one clawing desperately at their hearts. "Remember that you are nothing." The figures jeered, swirling into a frenzy. Victor couldn't let the past define them. "No!" he roared, channeling every ounce of conviction within him. "You're not real. You're just fragments of our fears." His words sliced through the taunts, and for a fleeting moment, the shadows wavered, confusion flickering across their horrific faces. "What if we stand against them together?" he urged, looking at Emily, feeling her resolve intertwining with his. "Let us banish this darkness," Emily shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "We won't be owned by our past." Victor felt a rush of energy at her words, a flickering sense of hope reigniting within him. Together, they focused on the shard, its silvery light gleaming against the encroaching shadows. "Channel everything," he instructed, grasping her hand tighter. They closed their eyes, recalling every moment of pain they had faced, but instead of despair, they drew upon the strength each scar had provided. Moments later, they unleashed their combined strength, a brilliant wave of white light bursting forth from the shard. "We are more than our fears," they cried in unison. The shadows shrieked, evaporating under the onslaught of their collective light. The air trembled, the darkness disintegrating as remnants of what once held them captive fell away like ash in the wind. "We did it!" Emily gasped, eyes wide with disbelief. But their victory was short-lived. The remnants of the shadows swirled into a singular, massive form, coiling around them like a storm. "You may hide from me, but I will always find you." The voice was now tangible, laced with fury and intention. "No!" Victor shouted defiantly, summoning the shard anew. "You don't control us." With a fierce determination, they unleashed the light once again. It flared out, catching the remnants in a blaze, but the force was pulled inward, collapsing into the darkness. A terrible roar erupted, shaking the ground beneath them. "Escape?" the creature hissed, its shadow tightening around them. "This is your fate." Victor felt the wall pressing against him, a crushing weight bringing a tidal wave of despair. But Emily's unwavering grip restored his focus. "Victor! We must let go," she urged, her voice fierce, breaking through the fog of fear. "Let go?" he echoed, confusion swirling through him. "Yes. Not just the darkness, but the fear, the doubt. We can't let it bind us." In that moment of clarity, Victor understood. They needed to abandon the burdens of the past, to shed the weight that had held them captive for so long. Together, he breathed, imagining each worry, each fear as tangible threads they could pull away. "Together?" Emily affirmed, their hearts pounding as one. With a shared breath, they locked eyes, pouring everything they had into the shard. The explosion of light consumed them once more, reflecting within their souls. The shadows screamed in terror as they shattered, dissolving into particles of nothingness. As the light faded, they found themselves standing on solid ground, the weight of darkness lifted. They were back in the dimly lit alley where Victor had first followed Emily. The unmarked door loomed ominously behind them, a silent testament to the darkness they had just faced. Victor turned to Emily, who breathed heavily, her expression wavering between disbelief and relief. "We made it," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, and he felt hope rekindle within him. "We did," he agreed, pulling her into a warm embrace. They had faced their fears together and emerged on the other side. But they both knew that the shadows could always return. It was a constant battle they would have to carry forward. "But no matter how many shadows come," Emily said softly, pulling back to meet his determined gaze, "we're stronger together." "Always," he promised, and with that, their bond solidified. Side by side, they ventured forth into the world beyond the darkness, the future unknown but shining with the potential for hope. As they walked away, Victor couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows had merely retreated, gathering their strength for another day, another encounter. But now, nothing could define them except the unyielding light they carried within. The end was just a beginning, a choice to embrace hope instead of allowing fear to prevail. Before we wrap this up, remember this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now, it really helps push the algorithm. And hey, flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. What did you think of Victor and Emily's journey? You've got to share your thoughts. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.